Blessings, Hatep and Ma'at. That means I'm offering you truth. Welcome. This is going to be an energy reading for December. I usually like to keep these timeless, like eternal. But the intention really is to read the energy. So typically I do my readings a little differently so that they are captured in that more eternal context. This time, I'm pretty much just intuiting the reading directly. Usually, I really sit with it and I like synthesize the message. So, this one's going to be a lot more intuitive, but I wanted to just make sure to still come on and share this reading because, yeah, I didn't get to do a energy reading last moon cycle. So, this is a very, very special moon cycle. If you're here in real time, um, I really think it's important to recognize the importance of this particular cycle that we're in right now. We're approaching the winter solstice. There's a lot of really potent energies right now. And if you are watching later on, still trust that there's a message for you. It's always a fated connection. And yeah, messages are still timeless, right? So I'm going to make sure that we go through each element, and then I'm going to come back in and make sure that I synthesize it with like the exact message that I feel is coming through this particular reading. Okay. So for those who don't know, I'm Asnefraka. I'm the mother of Tehuti Ma'at. That is the page that you're watching this reading on. If you want more information about Tehuti Ma'at, we're a revolutionary instrument and we focus on really just bringing forward healing and empowerment through our different organizational models and healing models that we have. So we do a lot of community service work. And if you want to just learn more about Tehuti Ma'at, then I want you to just go ahead and check out tehutimaat.org. And if you have any questions, you can always contact us at grow@tehutimaat.org. And the number is 646-883-Ma'at, and that is for text messages only. But definitely check out tehutimaat.org and our link tree there. Okay, so this particular reading is brought to you on behalf of Coins and Karis, which is one of our cooperative ventures. So for Tehuti Ma'at as a revolutionary instrument, we create cooperative institutions that are focused on our mission and our goal of empowering people of African ascent, right? So Coins and Karis is our healing marketplace. It's where we offer spiritual goods and services. So my readings are also available at coinsandkaris.com. So if that's something that you're interested in and you'd like to book a personal reading for yourself, then you can book that reading at coinsandkaris.com and you can read a little bit more about the different readings that I have. Today, the reading we're doing is what I call my Merkut reading. It's a pyramid reading and it's 10 cards in the spread. Today, I am going to just go ahead and begin. So the essence of the reading, usually I like to show it, but the essence of the reading is literally designed to actually read the way that it looks. So the cards are pulled and stacked in 4 layers. So the first card is at the top, and that's the sun. That's literally Septet or Sirius, right? It's the sun of our sun, right? So this is like that spiritual essence. It's the fire. It's the spark of the reading. Then when it comes into the second layer, there are 2 cards, and in that layer, it's considered the air element, right? That is the Ba, it's the magical mental body. So this is how the energy comes into the mind. And then when we come into the third layer, there are 3 cards, and that is the water element, which is the emotional layer of the reading, right? And then the base is 4 cards, and that is the earth element. So it's how the energy manifests in the physical material world. Okay, so the first card that we got in the reading is, it's actually reversed. So there's an emphasis on it whenever there's a card in reverse. So I like to always make sure that I encourage you to exercise your own intuitive senses. So if you're watching the raw play, just pause it, take note of what comes up for you intuitively when you see the card. I'm going to put this one to the side so you can actually see it upright and you can actually see that symbolism of Geb laying over with Nut arced over him. So the card itself, sorry, this one is stained, but the card itself is in the house of Ra, which is the family of the sun, and it's the number 6. So 6 numerologically is the number of perfection, right? It is also representing the carbon compound, 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, right? So it's when something comes into its perfected state after it's been challenged and creates power, it synthesizes itself into this neutral point, right? So you could see like a lot of the different symbolism of the six. I'm not going to get into that too deeply, but the card is Nut, Geb, and Shu, right? So Nut is the cosmic womb that's arced overhead. Geb is the earth that's laying across the bottom. And Shu, which is a paradoxical symbol because it is both sometimes depicted as the father and also the son of Nut and Geb, right? So it's speaking to a paradox that the air actually represents, because we can look at it both as a separating force or a connecting force, right? And in this card, it's representing separation and the necessity for independent action. However, when I look at it in the context of this particular cycle, the energy I'm getting through, especially because the card came out in reverse, is there needs to be distinction. There needs to be distinction, and there is an emphasis on independent action, but there's also an emphasis on you actually distinguishing for yourself, right? And processing for yourself where there's need for separation and where there's need for connection, where there's need for you to be accountable for your own unique being, and where there's need for you to allow yourself to unify and connect with others and see how everything is connected. So the way I'm picking up on that for this particular cycle that we're in right now is really the mirroring that all relationships are, right? There's a reality that everything is connected, right? But we have these illusions of separation that we honor, right? In the space-time continuum, we know we're in the physical body, and there's a grounded element that we have to express, right? And that grounded element is the fact that we're all in our own bodies, even though we're one thing. So what is it that the different relationships and the different things that you perceive to be as separate from you, what are they mirroring to you, about you, so that you get to see it and interact with it? What opportunity are they providing for you, right? So there's a deep emphasis on that, but also just honoring and being accountable for yourself, right? Because sometimes we get caught up in like really considering and processing things in the context of everyone else. And this cycle is really wanting us to make sure that we honor ourselves, which is important because now as I move into the next layer of the energy, it's dealing with the mind and how this energy, this cycle is going to impact our thoughts. And the two cards here are so significant because they're keeping us balanced. All right, the next card that we have, which is really dealing with our past thoughts, right, that still have an influence on us now. It's us remembering and holding like the thought patterns and actions that are still going to affect the present from the past. And this card is happy. So remember to pause it if you need to, if you're watching the raw play, if you're here live, just whatever comes up for you intuitively, you always want to take note of. That's like the most significant part of the reading. I'm going to go ahead and let me actually just remove the banner from the bottom. All right, so here we are. Let me put this one so it's a little smaller. All right, we're in the house of Ta, family of the earth, and the number 5. So the number 5 precedes 6. I mentioned that 6 was the number of perfection, but when you get to 5, it's after the number 4. And whenever we're dealing with the number 4, we're dealing with the 4 cardinal directions, the 4 cardinal elements, right? We're dealing with the 4 corners, right? So it's very stable energy. When you move into the 5, it destabilizes through a challenge or change, and that creates power, right? So this can represent change. But it's the energy of Hapi. Hapi is the energy of Aquarius. I'm going to really elaborate on this because this is really important for this moon cycle that we're in right now in particular, but this era that we're in right now on the planet for the next 2 decades. This energy is the most prominent and the most revolutionary, shifting energy for us to be in alignment with, because Bennu, which we also got in the reading, which I think is so dope. Bennu, which is known as Pluto, right? The energy spheres of Pluto, it is currently in Hapi, which is a very big shift because it just officially moved into it, and it will never shift out of this particular energy for the next 2 decades again. So that's really important. So all the transformation we've been having over the past 2 decades that we just completed was in the area of Kanum, which is representing our physical structures and the institutions of the world. So like kind of like all the revelations and things that have been coming apart. I believe when Bennu or Pluto first entered into Kanum was in 2008. And we had the financial crash, and like there was a lot of interesting dynamics that happened. So those are the types of energy signatures that affected. So like all that transformation that's been happening around like people being disillusioned and like clear about the institutions that are not working from the established construct that we're in. So now we're moving into Hapi, which is the energy of transformation. Now you can see on the symbol here for Hapi, it's actually showing Smaitawi, which is a symbol of the union of the upper and lower lands. That's why you see the two figures here tying the bow, one with the papyrus and one with the lotus. One grows in the upper area of Kemet or the Nile Valley or the Hapi Valley, because the Hapi is actually the river that we call the Nile, right? The longest river on the planet, arguably, but the only one that flows from south to north. Right, and its signature is really at the edge here when it starts breaking off into different water streams, and it's the essence of the current or the currency, right? It's an economic force because the river or the Hapi was what brought forth the abundance for the people, right? The surplus. So that energy is very, very significant because it's expressing what happens when the flood comes, right? The inundation of the Hapi, that flood overflows, right? Which is why we know Aquarius as the water bearer, even in the Greek interpretation of it. And the water comes up and you're meant to have channels for that water, right? So when the energy floods and overflows, you want to be prepared and have it channeled and have ways to store and direct the water where you want it, right? And water is generally depicting an emotional thing, but this placement of the reading is all about the air. So it's the mind, the thoughts, right? And our thought patterns. So this is like revolutionizing our thought patterns. Our thought patterns are changing, but our past thought patterns that were around us coming together, bringing things together, are still influencing our mind right now in this cycle, which is important because even though we're making distinctions, right, and we're taking independent actions, we're also taking into consideration the harmonizing, right, or the synchronizing that was already done in the previous cycle. The previous cycle brought an influx of positive energy, and it's bringing about a sense of renewal that we're experiencing even right now. So that was a lot of like the Neath energy we just moved through. It's very optimistic, right? Sagittarius in the Greek. It's very optimistic, it's very buoyant, right? And it's expansive. So we're getting the taste of all this space that we're moving into, but it's also, not necessarily what is present with us right now. So the next card is really depicting the energy that we're moving into with our minds. So obviously we're in a continuum. So we don't just exist in this moment right now. This moment is creating the next moment, and this moment is a reflection of the previous moments and decisions and thoughts that we've had. So again, I'm going to clarify that in simple terms. Our past thoughts around all that positive energy that came through, that overflow, that abundance, and that perspective and illumination that we had mentally is directing our thoughts forward into this cycle through this like fluidic energy, right? And that's what like astral work is. It's very fluid. It's fluid. It's not necessarily tangible, right? So it anchors in through the mind, through our thoughts, and then we can use that to actually create real, practical, tangible things, right? So our energy is now moving into this energy signature, So this is literally the next card in the sequence in the family of the earth, Ta, which is interesting. So we went from 5 to 6 again, right? The number of perfection. And the card is Akeru. Remember to take note of whatever comes up for you intuitively here. Because this card right here is actually representing where we have the inner energy in our minds to carry forward for transformation, right? So this is a guide for our forward moving thoughts, right? Like as we move forward, how do we want to think? And this card represents a journey, right? It's about remembering the past in order to know how to act in the present. So again, everything I just said. So the past influx, right? The happy, all that transformative energy, the structures that we just became aware of that aren't working, our new value paradigms that are coming online. And all of that needs to be taken into consideration. The synchronizations we've been having with like-hearted, like-minded souls, the divine connections, right? That we've been making. So all of that, remembering the past, but it can also be, this is a very like past life energy, right? Like it's a lot of things, whether we're conscious of it or not, right? They're there and they're affecting us, but this is bringing unconscious memories up to the surface. This could be memories from your childhood, right? This could be memories from a past life, because this represents the continuity of time. Just because something happened in your childhood doesn't mean that it's not present right now. Just like if just because something happened yesterday or the day before, it still has an impact on us now. That's what this card represents. Inherently, it has a mirroring, because you could literally see like the two lines mirroring each other. And that mirroring, remember what I had said earlier, the mirroring, you could think about it in the context of like relationships and how we mirror each other for sure. But this is also a mirroring and a balancing that this energy wants us to have mentally, right? Ma'akeru, which has the word akeru in it, means being true of word and deed. So what I say is what I do, right? So this card is also, because it's in the mental realm, what I'm seeing it saying about this cycle is more so our thoughts being in alignment with what it is that we're creating, right? So our thoughts being in alignment with our words, our thoughts being in alignment with our actions, our deeds, right? So now we move into the next layer, which is the emotional layer, right? This is the water. All right. So this is representing where we have that contact with our senses, right? So this is like past emotions that could be impacting us right now. And this card right here is Satet. It's literally the next card in the sequence. And I don't put my cards in order. Okay. And I pull the cards in a very particular way. So that's very interesting to me. It's again in the house of Ta, which is the family of the earth. And it's number 7. We just had number 5, number 6, and now we're at number 7 in that same suite, that same house, same family. That's interesting. So anyway, that energy is Satet. All right. And Satet, you can see the symbolism here. You should always take note, but you can see she's channeling something from the stars, and she's channeling it down onto that like island where you see in the water these trees going out. She also has that bow and arrow in hand with the Ankh. Well, the bow, the arrows are in her head and her crown, and then she's got those 2 horns. She has she doesn't have the double crown that represents both lands. She's only representing one, which is really interesting. The lower land, which represents the higher self, right? The fertile land. So, but she's channeling that down from the cosmos, which is really interesting. And this card itself represents purification. So we're talking about the purification of our emotions. We've been doing a lot of emotional shedding, a lot of emotional clearing, a lot of emotional work. I know you have to have been doing that because the energy has been primed for that. And, you know, the way that we align with it makes it so we experience it either easy or hard, right? So hopefully you've been in alignment. Hopefully you've been tuning into our readings and it's been supporting you and really facing the emotional growth opportunities that have been coming forward for us, right? So the card is about that purification emotionally, and it's also the initiation of a new project, and it's about the right time for action and sending our energy outward. Like you can see, she's channeling that energy down because she's in alignment with the cosmos, right? This brings me like to navigating eternity, our energy management medicine, where we literally are teaching you how to synchronize your life with nature based on the cosmic cycles that we're in, the moon cycle, the solar cycles, all of that, so that you're in alignment energetically with the current of nature. So that's what this card represents in itself, is that past opportunity emotionally where we've been initiating a new emotional reality for ourselves, right? Where we can experience different things and not keep recycling the past emotions that we've had. And yeah, that new stage that we've started, really, it was prime time for that. Perfect alignment with this cosmos. And now that's going to be influencing our emotions moving forward. This card was actually in reverse, so there is an emphasis on here. It could also be blocked during this cycle. Remember, this cycle, as of when this is being recorded, Tehuti or Mercury is in retrograde, but will be going direct. But we do also have Heru, which is Mars, in retrograde, up until February. So if you're watching this in real time, that energy is also present in the context of like things that might be blocked right now or just like slowed down. There's nothing ever that's really like blocked. It's just you have to address, the barrier or the obstacle, right? Overcome the obstacle. So this one is symbolized by the serpent, right? You could see the priestess here with the mask of a serpent. That's what it's supposed to be depicting. And it's in the family of Tepeaun, which is the primordial family. These are energies that existed before existence. And we're going back to the number 6 again. Very interesting. Anyway, Kekut. Kekut is the energy that this represents. So you could tune into whatever comes up for you intuitively. Remember, that's the most important thing. The serpent energy is always representing the feminine, right? The great mystery, the intuitive power, particularly when it's the cobra. But this is a primordial energy. So we're talking about before existence, something that's just been this essence, right? And this essence represents emotionally, right? This is at the center of the reading. So this is also the connection point between our earthly and our spiritual lives. So the card that's in this position is very important. And the fact that it was reversed, I want to place emphasis on it because it's really telling us that through the darkness, there's a glimmering of light and hope. This card always represents that potential, right? And the necessity for perseverance so that the light can bloom. Okay? And it's going to bloom into a new perception of the world, right? So this is really deep because all of that growth and transformation we've been having emotionally has put us in a position in this moment as we've been facing our own unconscious shit that's been coming up, right? That darkness. There's still a glimmering of light and hope that's really trying to guide us through that. And that's hopefully you've been focusing your energy on that space, right? Some of us may have been focusing the energy in the chaos, but focus in on that light and see where that hope is so that you can see the way through and allow that to blossom into what will be your new perception of the world, because the card itself represents that within the darkness, the light gestates and is born. We only get light through darkness. Our illusion of light that we experience right now through our sun, through Ra, is because we're in the darkness of the cosmos, of the womb, of space. It's all dark. It's a womb, right? And we need that darkness for light to come out. We need that darkness to birth and create. You could think about it as the soil, right? You have to put the seed into the darkness of the soil so it can gestate and decay so that it can sprout that new life. That's what this energy represents emotionally. That's what's happening for us right now. That's what's happening spiritually and connecting down to our physical world. Is going to hatch. It's going to sprout this new expression of all this emotional transformation that we've been experiencing. Okay, and then the next card here, which was also in reverse, this is definitely a very dark card as well. So I do want us to be aware of this, because this to me is more so speaking to the winter solstice. So I'll elaborate on that. It's in the family of the Duat, or the Tuat. The Tuat is the abyss. It's the underworld. It's the 12 hours of the night that the sun has to go through before it comes out into the light. But in Uno, the fourth and fifth hour of the night, that's what this represents. So this is the darkest point of the night that the sun has to go through. So this is us really facing our darkness. The reason why I'm saying that this represents the winter solstice is because whenever we're in this point of the cycle of each revolution each year, we're reaching when the sun reaches its furthest southern point, right? And depending on which hemisphere you're in, it expresses itself differently, but that represents the longest expression of darkness, the longest nights and the shortest days. And then after the solstice point, the sun begins to shift direction and the days begin to lengthen and the nights shorten. That is the balancing system that our planet has, right, in our solar system. So this is representing that darkest hour or the longest night, right? Which means it's the most dense, it's the most dark, it's the most cold, like all of those energies that we associate with the opposite end of the spectrum, right? And they're all still purposeful. We need those moments. So this card represents like emotionally the dark night of the soul, as they call it. Or I like how I heard another brother say, it's more of a dark night of the ego, right? Like it's really just going into that darkness and facing the darkest parts of ourselves that tend to want to express themselves during these points in the cycle. So yeah, that darkest hour before the dawn is very important. It's the nadir, it's the lowest point in the cycle. It can bring illness, it can bring suffering. So it's important to be clear that the energy is going to express itself somehow. I encourage people to honor the energy because there's no way around it. You know, sometimes we experience this toxic positivity that's just not helpful. And I don't even like to use that word because like people are desensitized to the toxic, but it's serious. Like it's a certain point of positivity where it's like it's not balanced, it's not realistic, it's not grounded, and we also need the night. If it was always day, we would not enjoy the day, would we? Right? We appreciate what the daylight is because we have the night, and we appreciate what the night is because we have the day. So that's part of the holistic balancing, the equilibrium that we're beginning to like bring into the planet right now by honoring both sides, right? The both and the restoration of the African worldview, right? The original worldview, and honoring the original peoples. Okay, that's the shift that's happening. And speaking of that shift, we're coming into the physical world, and the first card is Bennu, which I said is the energy of transformation. It's the energy of Pluto, right? It's through death and rebirth, right? So what Bennu represents, which interestingly was also in the reverse, but this is what the Greeks called the phoenix. Bennu represents the phoenix. It's literally when it's burned down to the ashes and then reborn. So you see, it's a fire principle. It's a solar principle. It is the number 5. Again, remember I said 5 is transformation, is challenge to change. And it's also representing power because that creates power, right? It's in the family of Neph. The family of Neph is the family of the wind. Okay. So Bennu is a very significant card because I've been talking about Bennu and Hapi, right? Pluto in Aquarius. This is representing transformation itself, but it's through the renewal of life, the renewal of energy, rebirth. And this is in the earth layer of the reading. So this is very physical. This is something that we've probably been experiencing in our physical world, right? In whatever way it's showing up for you, because it represents shedding the outworn, the heavy, the old, the things that have been stagnating and holding us back, right? So that we can feel free as a bird. That's what it represents. So that energy is impacting us on the physical world, and it's moving us into this energy of Wajet in the house of Ta. Remember, that's the earth energy, earth family. The number 3, which is a creative energy. 3 is the Trinity. When you have the mother and the father, it creates the third, right? The child, the creative force. And Wajet represents spiritual awakening. Remember, if you are watching the raw play, to pause it because you want to take note. When I show all the cards, remember, pause them and take note of what comes up for you specifically. I mean, whatever thoughts, people, past things, whatever it may be, symbols that come up for you when you see it, what it speaks to you, do not underestimate that. That's the answer. That's the most significant part of the reading. My interpretation is just some guidance to guide you to the part within yourself that only you know and only you can identify. So your soul wants to speak to you through these symbols. So just allow that to happen. Anyway, it does represent the spiritual awakening, enlightenment, the flow of creative energy. This is also magical protection. And when I say magical, I just mean like that aspect that's a bit more mystical, right? May not be direct. It represents power, royal power. It's a very regal energy. You see she's wearing the red crown, representing the desert land. She has the cobra, which actually, no, I think, funny enough, the last card is actually representing the desert land because you have the vulture symbolized. But I'll go into that. But this one, you see the cobra, it's representing the feminine intuition, using our intuition to guide us in our physical world, our heightened intuition that's coming through this massive spiritual awakening that's happening, enlightenment that's happening. Taking note of those things that you are awakening into and the way your intuition is speaking to you, communicating and guiding you, especially right now during this peak climax of the cycle we're in right now. A lot of messages coming through. And then the Kepra is the next card, and it did come in reverse. So I want to emphasize the opportunity for transformation, but also the opportunity for stagnation that's here. So you want to emphasize this energy because it could be held back. This is the card of Kepra. It's the number 4 in the family of Pet, which is the family of the heavens. And Kepra, as you can see, is the dung beetle here, the scarab beetle. That's what the Kepra is, with the solar disk overhead, with the wings of the falcon coming out. All right. This card representing transformation of a situation, inner transformation, and the renewal of our energy. So that's the energy that's present here for us during this cycle. Kepra, what is transforming in your life? What wants to transform? What needs to transform? And that transformation process happens through the symbolism of the Kepra is important because that beetle lays its eggs in a ball of waste, of animal waste. It'll literally lay its eggs in cow dung, cow feces, and then roll it into a perfect sphere, following cues from the sun for an entire moon cycle for approximately 28 days, for waiting for those eggs to hatch. So it takes a moon cycle, and those eggs that it laid in the waste, that it's been rolling, following these cues, right? Bringing us back to that other card that was showing that energy that was channeling down from the stars, from that constellation onto the earth, some fertility, right? So that fertility is the humus. It is the manure, right? In agriculture, we use the manure for fertility, right? So that waste is necessary. Otherwise, you just got shit. So you have to activate it. You have to use it, right? You have to follow those cues. You have to be patient with the process because it takes 28 days, right? To allow that rebirth to happen. So that's what I think is really important. What this card is representing is really speaking to, like, be clear that you could also just let it be shit. You could let it just be emotional baggage, and that would not be the wisest way to embody this energy. This energy wants transformation. Okay, and transformation requires death. There has to be a release. Okay, so this is very physical, so it can be inner transformation. It could be transformation of our circumstances and situations, our bodies, but we actively participate in creating that. And then finally, the last card in Ta, we go to the fourth card in the family of the earth, Nekbet. Having that same that relationship with Mut, which is the mother energy, because they both have the symbol of the vulture. But there's a distinction between these two expressions of energy. This represents clear-sightedness. It also represents the gestation of plans, because really it's important to recognize that Mut, right, and Nekbet, symbolized by the vulture. The vulture is known for its mother element. It's inherently a very womb-centric energy, because what the vulture teaches us through its behavior, right, when it will prick its own blood to feed its young, is that selfless love of the mother. So it brings us into that energy of mother, right? And we want to come into the healed expression of mother. So things that could come up around mother wounds, dynamics and things with the mother, you want to give very close attention to. But this is literally expressing symbolically the gestation of plans that we're making in the physical world right now. So the space is here. The energy wants those plans to gestate and allow us to achieve success through applying spiritual principles. Okay, so all the lessons that have been learned, or even the messages you're getting from this reading, right? Applying these spiritual principles that are being lifted give you the clear-sightedness that this card represents. That's the energy that's present here for us. Remember, these are all energies. They're not deities. They're not things to worship. We're not going to evoke them in a, externalized sense. We're invoking them or evoking them through embodiment and honoring the fact that these are forces of nature that just exist. So we're just reading and picking up on what's present in this cycle so that we see what opportunities we have to actually embody those principles within ourselves. How do you embody clear-sightedness, right? How do you allow your plans to gestate during this cycle? That's how you align with the energy. That's how you embody the energy, right? You apply those spiritual principles to your life. Okay, so I think the oracle has been delivered. I hope that the message is very clear to you. This cycle is all about opportunities for transformation and growth through personal accountability, taking independent action, being clear about the opportunities for healing that are presented to us, embracing the darkness of this moment, of this nadir, as the sun, Ra, moves into the winter solstice point and we experience the longest night of the year. And I hope that you embrace that moment and take this opportunity for the potent transformational possibilities that are here. All right. Travel light, power,